like me playing a set a couple months ago, and here we are talking right now. But with what Vans is trying to do with you know, celebrating Pride, and literally, I mean, like I have the overview sheet right here where it says like, you know, this is a blank canvas, do whatever you want, which I genuinely appreciate. And why I specifically wanted to talk to you was, I know you came out recently, right?
Yeah.
When I first came out, and I think that we have this in common, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I came out, I didn't come out already being established in a queer community. I was completely without any kind of queer community. And when I came out, people went out of their way to like make me feel welcome and to just like be like, oh, hey, I'm doing this thing. Come be a part of it so we can get a chance to hang out and like be friends. So that's essentially why I invited you here, just so we would have a chance to hang out and get to know each other and talk.
I love that. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So that's all I had to say.
Yeah. And you're totally right. That's exactly the same experience. It's like, had punk rock, but not much in terms of,
I'll be honest with you. You play in a band called We Are the Union, right?
Yes.
I wasn't familiar with your band until I read your story. And you came out in Spin, right? I came out in Rolling Stone.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I wasn't familiar with your band. I've since gone and I've checked out your band. Why did I think you were from Lansing?
We originally were from Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Okay, Ann Arbor. All right.
Yes.
So I don't even know why I thought Lansing, but Michigan.
They're close. They're sister towns in that state.
Have you heard the conspiracy theory that Ann Arbor, Michigan doesn't exist?
No.
We can talk about that later.
I'm distressed.
But you live in LA now.
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And is the band based in LA?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, but yes, I think the simplest way to put it is the band is based in LA. We're all over the place, but like the heart and soul of the band is in Los Angeles, yeah.
Have you been functioning during the pandemic and quarantine and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we made a whole record. I had all these songs for our new record, and I had been working kind of solo with just a producer, and that's fun, and I love that we put out a bunch of singles, and those are great. I love that, but it's more fun when the whole band's there. And so we actually managed to isolate ourselves in the desert for full 2 weeks. We literally just like got an Airbnb and just like went to the desert and recorded a bunch of songs together, and that was like what ended up becoming our newest record. And that felt so freeing to be like, oh my God, like we're not just kind of like internet functioning. We're actually in the same place, doing the same thing, like completely isolated from society. We're like, we rented a house in Joshua Tree, and just like, we just did the dream thing, because we were like, well, we're not doing anything else, and we're certainly not playing any shows. We certainly can't like really do much other than maybe make some music together. So, we've been able to function on that level, but it certainly isn't what we'd all like.
Sure.
Yeah.
So who's the producer on the record?
John Graber.
Okay. So I feel like, that in general ties into kind of like what some of the overview outlines are with what Vans is trying to do here, about like celebrating exploration and discovery and experimentation and the process of becoming. And I don't feel like it gets much more about the process of becoming than coming out while you're making a record, right? So did you go into it knowing that's what you were going to do, like starting out on the record, like this is the record that I'm going to come out with? Or, yes? Yeah,
I mean, I had kind of battled back and forth with it. Because the record does have several themes. There's also, a relationship falling apart angle. There's also, struggles with my ADHD. So there are other themes. And so I wasn't really sure if like that was the foot I wanted to lead with. And the longer I spent on it and the longer we worked on the songs, John, our producer, and I kind of had a few conversations where it was like, this is what the record is. All the other stuff is important. It should stay. Like, it doesn't have to go away. But the main theme of this record is my struggles with gender dysphoria. And further like my coming out. You know, I knew I wanted to come out through music and through my art, but I didn't know that this was going to be the exact way that we were going to do it until really probably a month before we hit the studio. And that was the moment where, you know, we kind of, John and I combed through the songs and went like, no, this is what it is, you know, and this is what feels right.
What was the process like of like letting the band in on that? Like, as far as like, at what point did they know like, oh, this is what's going on?
At the last possible minute.
That's my style. Yeah.
Yep. The last possible minute. I definitely sent like a group text, I think, right before everybody went to confirm their flights. I was like, hey, just so everybody knows, before you buy your flights, in case anybody has a problem with this, not that I thought that they would, but here's my situation and here's what the record's about. Like, you know, which is obviously like, would have loved to have everybody in a room together and had a wonderful dinner and explain, you know, my whole life story to them. But I think I was happy just to have their support and have them on board, you know, even if we were limited in how we could do it.
I kind of, you know, I did the same with, I came out with, during the record, the Against Me made Transgender Dysphoria Blues, and same thing, like waited until the very last minute, and up until that had been kind of hiding behind, like, you know, you're practicing in a room, you have a shitty PA, no one can really hear the lyrics, but once you start making demos and the lyrics kind of start becoming audible, it like gets more and more dangerous as far as like, I'm gonna have to say something here.
Yeah.
I kind of like the text message style in that was something I learned because I sat everyone down in a room and was like, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like texting or emailing or writing a letter is like a non-confrontational way that doesn't put anyone on the spot to react immediately.
Yeah.
They can like process on their own, you know, and like kind of wrap their head around it before they have to come out with a reaction, you know?
Yeah.
Not that there should be a fucking reaction, but
Sure, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like that also, you know, that this kind of relates in a way to pride. And that's obviously, you know, what we're here. There's the screen over there that keeps flashing Pride. And that's when this is all going to be shown, is during Pride. Have you been to a Pride festival before?
Never.
I've only been to one, right? Against Me played Toronto Pride. And it was really cool because, like, I forget where the parade started or whatever, but it was this, you know, big long parade. Everyone's marching in the street, and it all ended in this square where the stage was set up, and then a couple other bands played and we played. And it was like a really tremendously empowering feeling in that way. And it was really like, I don't know if it was just Toronto or what, like, where I remember like that morning, I was like standing outside of the hotel smoking a cigarette, and I saw the two most like straight-laced, assuming cis hetero men walk by. And I like caught a little of the conversation where I overheard the one guy being like, no, that's non-binary. And then like they keep on going. But I feel like my relation to Pride was weird in that, in talking about like not feeling like I didn't have a queer community when coming out, and I've had to search for that and had to find for that. In that same way, like I feel like an outsider with things like Pride. Which is strange to be like, because on the surface, like pride is a word, right? You can understand what pride means as a word. And then there's pride as a concept of like, okay, pride, the month, you know, and what it means relating to Stonewall and like all of that. But it was strange feeling like, I don't know if I belong here, but yet clearly I belong here. And also in that way, then relating this to like talking about band stuff, where it's like working with other people in that context. Like you're making a record about coming out, right? And you're telling your band through text message, like this is what's going on. And you're working with a producer, and I'm assuming your band they're straight, right? And they're cis.
Primarily, yeah.
And so similarly, you know, like even being here now, where it's like, okay, you know, you're like working with a company, right? You're like representing a group, or I don't even know if that's the right way to fucking put it, but you're like being given a platform, and you're working with people who might not even understand what you're doing. So like you almost have to take it as this opportunity to educate while at the same time you're educating yourself and learning about yourself. I don't know if that makes sense or if you can relate to that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I did have the one advantage of having Jeremy, who also has a YouTube channel, Scotch Network, to have them around because they are non-binary, and that was like the one bit of queer community that I did have, but it doesn't totally feel like part of queer community because it's through punk rock, right? It's through the band. They're in the band, right? They're the trombone player, and we make music together. Also happens to be, that was kind of how the relationship existed there. So I'm lucky that I had a little bit of that beforehand in my friendship with them, and their like unapologetic, their unapologetic queerness has definitely inspired me, certainly. But certainly the rest of the band is cishet. And so it does make it interesting, like you said, then to kind of walk into a context and talk about something when you're still kind of exploring it for yourself, right? It's like, but I also think that's interesting. I think that our brains do interesting things in the moment.
Sure.
And I almost think, like, whether you're making art or whether you're having a conversation, when you're in the moment, when you're following your gut, there's an earnestness that's harder to access when you're kind of operating from your brain. And so there's something kind of special about being put in a situation where you're kind of forced to reflect in a way that's maybe, or not forced, but it's, sort of asked to reflect in a way that's new, even while you're still processing something. Like, I think that's when some of the coolest art happens for me, certainly.
Sure.
And I think that's when some of the most interesting conversations happen too.
I think it's called the flow state.
Yeah, there you go.
And it's actually like scientific, has to do with like your frontal lobe and your lizard brain. But totally. And then my frontal lobe just shut down. I forgot what I was going to ask previous to that.
Oh no.
Okay, so with We Are the Union, would it be accurate to say you're a ska band?
Yes. Certainly. However, I do always put the caveat of like, we are actively trying to alter the perception of what that means. If that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah,
so, certainly we fit in that, square-shaped peg or whatever, but we also, so we've always had this sort of dual identity. But I'm very happy that now I feel like that dual identity like feels whole, and it feels like I'm okay with we're a ska band, and I for the first time in a long time I don't feel upset about that, because there's been a lot of corny ones, and it's difficult to make sincere music in that medium. It is. It's really difficult. Well, it's not difficult to make the music. It's difficult to have people perceive it the way you want it to be perceived,
Sure.
But yeah, for this year, for the first time ever, I'm actually very happy to say we're a ska band.
It's like there's definitely a ska resurgence happening right now,
Yeah.
right? I feel like that is directly related to the pandemic in a way. Like, sure. I understand it. I don't know how to verbalize it and put it into words, but I'm like, oh, that actually makes sense. Like, in the same way that, like, currently I really struggle with writing lyrics that are direct and to the point. I'm like much more comfortable like writing surrealistically, and abstract senses, and like just because I feel like it's not that I want to escape reality, but I just like I've had too much fucking reality for a second.
Yes. We need some escapism. It's time.
But is there like with thinking about that, when we're thinking about ska music, like I know that there's some crossover, of course, like with the punk scene. I don't know if you'd agree that like, I've always felt the punk scene was primarily pretty macho, pretty masculine. And I don't know, would you say that about the ska scene in general too, or?
The ska scene is like, It is masculine, but it's not masculine in the like bro-y sense. It's more like it's a little bit more of almost like God, I hate to say this, but it almost has kind of incel vibes.
What is that?
Like incel vibes. You know? And that's not to say that like that's not to paint the whole like a brand of toxic masculinity to attribute to ska. I would give it that one. You know? There's just a lot of like it's not like violent or like bullyish like the punk scene sometimes feels, but it's also not particularly welcoming
Okay.
at first, you know. And you know, a lot has changed certainly, and you know that's great. But certainly going back to the '90s, I think it's almost like frat humor kind of framed the whole genre in the '90s.
Sure.
And we're kind of living in like the ripple effects of that a little bit. But it's really nice to see all the up and coming bands and a lot of the older bands too, kind of like turning cheek on that a little bit and going like, okay, we can have fun. We can have a fun style of music that isn't like bro jokes. You know, we can leave that. We can leave that behind.
Sure. I like that. I appreciate that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you had queer role models though in the ska scene? Like, are there any other trans players in the ska scene that you can think of?
I mean, again,
Aside from who?
aside from Jeremy, you know, Scott J Network, our trombone player,
right,
like
right. Mm-hmm.
as far as people that I looked up to when I was younger, no. I mean, there were barely women at all. There was, you know, it has been a predominantly cis white straight genre, you know, and there are of course exceptions, and I know that's true in punk rock too. But I will say, like, I always felt like for all of its flaws, punk rock always seemed to do a little bit of a better job with you know, creating an environment that was at least a little bit more equitable for everybody. And Scott just kind of lagged a little bit. But what I love about the resurgence right now is it's just a total rebellion of that. You know, it's full of queer people. It's full of POC. It's full of people who are just not straight cis dudes, which is great. You know, and it feels like a nice, not like a, I mean, I guess rebellion's the right word. It just feels like here we are, like we're here to take our genre and express ourselves how we want in it. And
I'm thinking right now about you saying it's like incels or whatever, and I made the connection right now of like I think I've always associated like ska bands with being better musicians than punk players. And somehow that ties into the incel thing. But
yeah. There's a lot of like band nerd crossover for sure. I mean, any genre where you have to. I will make the argument that any genre where you have horns is likely to have a higher standard of musicianship.
Sure.
Likely. Not guaranteed, but likely.
I guess overall though that like that's why I really do see the importance with stuff like this, you know, and with like a company like Vans stepping up and like providing the platform for us to talk. Just like a lifetime of that is suddenly erased because you come out, right? And in wanting to not just be a part of Pride as a month-long concept, but in wanting to actually be proud, I see just so much importance in visibility and representation. And in thinking of that, like, I think you're awesome for being that in the ska scene, you know, where for me, when I was younger, I didn't see anybody in punk or ska, you know, or anything like in that way to look up to as like, oh, I identify with that. Like I didn't fucking hear the word transgender until I was like 20 or something, you know? But so that's why I think it's so important, you know, and I think that it is like about building community in that way that actually leads to actual pride as opposed to pride as that concept of a month-long thing.
Yeah.
Which I know isn't a question, just more like a statement.
Yeah.
You know?
No, but it's a good point. I agree.
Right on. So I think that like the one overall quote here is, or the one question is, what does it mean to be a queer creator in 2021 to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of what's amazing about being a creator in 2021 is you can kind of do whatever you want, you know? And I think that, to me, that extends into queerness directly. You know, there's for so long, you had to look a certain way or act a certain way or, you know, fit a certain set of whatever it was, whatever era it was, whether it was morals or appearance or whatever it was, whatever the checklist was for that decade, you had to meet those metrics in order to see any success. And those metrics are still absolutely in play, of course, right? Like, you have to be a certain level of conventionally attractive to be, you know, an arena selling out pop star, right? Sure. Okay, I accept that. I don't like it, but I accept it. But I think what's amazing to me about 2021 is access to potential fans of your work is so much more streamlined than it's ever been. And so being a queer creator in that space essentially means, again, you can do whatever you want and you can express yourself however you see fit. And you can take whatever it is, whatever your idea is. If you want to make a ska record in which you come out as a trans woman, you can do that, right? And like, I don't know if anybody would have listened to that record 10, 20, 30 years ago from a ska band, right? I just don't know if they would have. And I think for me, my own personal experience, it's just incredible how much more access we have to people who are potentially interested in what we're doing. And that gives us the freedom to express ourselves honestly and to not worry about, you know, is this marketable? Is this whatever? It's just like, no, I'm actually just going to present myself authentically and people either like it or they don't. And I love that. It's incredible.
What do you see as obstacles?
Well, certainly the social media algorithms right now are not wonderful.
I fucking hate it.
It's awful. It's awful. I feel like I tweet about this twice a week. I just, you know, it has become abundantly clear to me that, I mean, Facebook is hello.
Time's up.
Get out.
Wrong answer, Reed.
I don't know. I like my lizard brain went to like a global guts scenario and I was going to get slimed. I don't know if that buzzer exists on a Nickelodeon show, but it triggered my, oh my God. But you know, I think, you know, social media algorithms are certainly driving eyes towards white content, towards cishet content. You know, they are certainly making it more difficult, especially as a queer creator or a POC creator. You know, I see that happening in real time. And that is an unfortunate obstacle for anyone trying to create right now. There's no denying it. But even with that in place, you know, the access is still better than it has been. So but you know, it's a big obstacle that I think we need to acknowledge. And I think that we need to, I don't know whether we need to I don't know whether it's putting pressure on these companies to take us seriously and to not let queer creators get literally bullied off of TikTok by having their accounts mass reported and content to see whether or not it was acceptable, right?
Sure.
Like, I think I see things like that and I go, this is a real problem that is going to stunt everything that I just said. You know, as you know, what makes 2021 great to be a creator. There's also this dark shadow of like, we need to figure out how to address that, because I do think it's going to get worse, and I do think we're going to start to see. I mean, they're already those Instagram and Facebook, especially. I mean, forget Facebook, and even YouTube are starting to. They're steering people towards the same type of content that we saw mainstream television steering people towards, right, in past decades. And so, I think we're at an important moment. I think we're at an important moment where if we make enough noise, we can maybe figure out an alternative route, because we still do have the internet at our disposal. But I do also foresee a future where if we can't get it together, we may also lose that avenue, you know, and that maybe become the new mainstream.
I don't know how to get around that even specifically with Spotify. Like, don't get me wrong, all these people are my friends and we've toured with them a bunch. But like, if you go and look at Against Me on Spotify and all the recommended listens, it's Hot Water Music, Bouncing Souls, and Dave Haas, Gaslight Anthem.
Right.
Again, all my friends, all people we've toured with,
Yeah.
but none of them have anything to do with being trans. And it completely just dismisses the audience that my band has that is trans or genderqueer or whatever, you know, or like any other kind of association. Mm-hmm. And that's because they completely base that stuff off of the way your voice sounds. So how do you get around that? If it isn't even a visual, it's just Spotify being like, that sounds like a dude. So we'll put them with the other dudes, you know, like it's fucked.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's fucked, right?
Yeah. That's really fucked. Huh. Well, I learned something today. That explains so much, though. It explains so much, because I feel like so often, especially with bands that aren't, or artists that aren't, you know, massive. Mm-hmm. So often I go through their similar artists and I'm like, the fuck? Like, I don't want to listen to that. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
That has nothing to do with what I was just doing. What is any of this?
Right.
That's so interesting.
Which seems like it'd be extra hard as like, okay, if you're like a ska band, only being relegated to associations with other ska bands and not anything to do with like your identity or anything like that, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how to solve these problems within this hour, but
right.
What are the other topics here? I did write down like questions even. Mm-hmm. I talked about navigating discovery inside of pre-established relationships, you know, or navigating experimentation inside of pre-established structure, which feels like that's even like related to this here and now.
Yeah.
How do you create, though, a space where you feel like you're fully able to express yourself?
Well, very good question. I mean, for me, step one was making sure that I was surrounded by people who are on board in my creative space. So at first, that was just me. Mm-hmm. And eventually the circle expanded more and more, right? I think that's I think almost like, this is going to sound bootstrappy, and I absolutely do not mean it that way. But for me, step one was like, create the space within myself, right? And then from there, once I got really comfortable exploring my own ideas inside of my head, then it was like, okay, well, is there somebody that I can like express this to and maybe create something with, and expanding that circle slowly as you're comfortable with. But I also think we're at a crossroads where like, in the face of everything we just talked about with social media algorithms, that maybe the time is to accelerate that process a little bit and figure out how to start shouting a little bit more. And so, I mean, I think we have to figure out how to just show up and take it. Because unfortunately, nobody's going to willingly hand over the platform, except in rare circumstances, which are always appreciated and always amazing. But, Spotify certainly isn't going to solve that problem on their own, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a difficult question, but I think ultimately we have to figure out. I think it starts. I mean, maybe it's as simple as this. Maybe it's as simple as finding other artists who are maybe a little bit outside of your medium, but see the world the way you see it, right? So maybe it's like, maybe it's time for us to take a nod from pop singers, right? Where they just collaborate with everybody and they don't care. Like, I love this about pop music. Pop musicians just will collaborate with anybody. They don't care. If the song's good, they put it out. Great, right? And I think like, well, what if we just took that approach, and what if we just said, well, what if we just created a community, right, of queer musicians where we all just collaborate with each other regardless of genre, and if it's bad, we don't put it out, right? But maybe that's the solution. Maybe it's as simple as find people who have your similar worldview and your similar position, but maybe don't sound like what you're doing, and see if you can create something together that then opens up both of your respective worlds, and kind of bridges a gap there. Maybe that's how we bridge that gap in a small way.
Have you toured yet since you've come out?
No.
Do you have any fears about that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially with all the legislation that's happening right now. I mean,
just like
in the
you mean
United
from going to
States
different state to state?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like Tennessee could be a war zone for us in 6 months' time, That's terrifying.
Has it been a positive response from your audience,
Yeah, I was shocked. So, I mean, I've been very lucky to surround myself with people who are queer friendly, right? I've been very lucky to find myself in a community where that is true. But, I think, sorry, I lost my train of thought. My ADD just kicked in.
I get it.
Where were we?
See, I'm glad contextually that there aren't actually people behind the cameras right there, because that gives you like the total like you're in a petting zoo type vibe, and they're just in the other room, which helps.
Yeah. Where were we? What was the
touring and
that's right.
and fan base?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, so I've been incredibly lucky. Again, because of the people that I've surrounded myself with, I think, been very fortunate that, albeit there have been a small handful of misguided people, there's been nothing negative. Literally nothing. Randos on YouTube, sure, but like, who the fuck cares? Mm-hmm. But from our base, everybody was like, yeah, okay, cool. Song's great. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not how I thought that was going to go, but like, okay, sure. And I think that, like, to me, that kind of confirmed why I did everything the way that I did it, because it was like, if one fucking kid could look at that and be like, well, it turned out all right for Reed, and maybe that's the next step for them to be like, hey, Mom, I think I'm trans or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's incredible. And like, I don't know if that's a realistic thing, but I that's why we create art, right? Is to inspire others. And if that is an experience that somebody has as a result of me doing that way, then it's like, what more could I ask for,
it's
right?
100% what will happen.
Like, yeah.
That's the whole point of it,
Right.
That's the whole point of putting yourself out there, and it does translate like that, The writer who wrote your spin article, Nico.
Nico, yeah.
Did you know Nico before? Or
No.
How did you get hooked up with them writing the article?
So initially, we have for the first time in our lives, we have a PR person that we hired Partly because we knew this was what the record was, and we finished the record, and John, our producer, was like, "Hey, the record's really good, and like you should do the most you can with it. This is an interesting story. You should run with it." I was like, "Okay." I mean, you're the producer, so you're like supposed to say that, but also I could tell that he meant it sincerely, and so we ran with it. We hired a PR company called No Earbuds. Jamie's amazing. Jamie's
Side one dummy. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful human being. And Jamie pitched it to Spin. And Spin was like, absolutely yes. Absolutely. We want to premiere the single. Absolutely. We want to tell this story. 100%. We want somebody who is a member of the queer community to write it, which I was very thankful for, because having done subsequent interviews with people who are not members of the queer community, there's a noted difference.
Sure.
And I've never felt attacked or like uncomfortable in any of those interviews, but it just felt very natural and comfortable to be talking to somebody who I felt like I felt like we had something in common over the subject that we were discussing. Mm-hmm. And that made it so much easier for me to open up and really speak honestly and freely. And I think that was really special. And Nico is incredible and made me feel incredible at every step of the way. And I think did a great job. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better way to come out to the world. It was everything about it was like my wildest dream. Every single thing up and down was my wildest dream. And I was like, how lucky am I? Right? Like, not a day goes by since that day. It's been almost a month now. Not a day goes by that I don't sit and reflect and just think about how lucky I am that that's how it played out.
I'm jealous of that, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I felt, not that, I really liked the person who wrote my coming out article or whatever. But like in interviews, I felt like I had to convince them.
Yeah.
Like, no, really, I'm trans.
Right.
And that they didn't even fully understand like what being trans was, you know? So it's like a person who is trans, who doesn't fully understand what being trans is, trying to convince a writer who doesn't understand what being trans is, that they're trans, and then they're going to write the article that's going to be like the framework and talking point for every other journalist afterwards.
Yeah.
I think it's always something that's like even recently possible, like to have your story told by another trans writer, in that context, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt so grateful to everybody and so grateful to Spin for having that insight to make that decision. I thought that was really sweet of them. And yeah, it's certainly a privilege, and it can't not acknowledge that, like, certainly your story, played a huge role in advancing that conversation in punk rock, right? Like there's literally no way that anyone could argue that that's not true. And, I'd be A, lying if I said that there wasn't a level of inspiration there, but also B, I think, like, I just, person to person, want to take a moment to express my gratitude for, you, as so many in the queer community have, you forged a path. Hell or high water. Like you said, you were convincing writers, right? You're convincing journalists of this thing that is true. And without that, I don't know that for people like me, it would be what it is now. I don't know that I would have had the experience that I had if it weren't for that. So I owe you an incredible debt of gratitude.
I thank you for saying it. You don't owe me anything. I feel like that's what it is. It's like passing it down, because I can point to someone else and be like, oh, well, I saw Mina Caputo come out, and I was like, there's another sign. Like, that speaks to me. Like, this pushes you forward.
Yeah.
And when you put yourself out there in those ways, like, you don't know what's going to come from it. You don't know who's going to be watching. You don't know in which ways it's going to reverberate, but it will, like
Right.
in the craziest ways,
Right.
you know? And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to be able to. I never really understood the value of telling one's story. I was always a listener, and I always, in general, in any marginalized person's experience, I've always tried to listen, always. But I never. There's something that happens when you live it. There's like a light bulb that goes off. You're like, that's why I did that. That's why it's important for everyone to do that, to listen to experiences that they may not necessarily relate to. It's so important so that when the next generation of whatever that is, right, when the next generation comes along, they're able to take another step and then another step. You know, it would be nice to just flip a switch and be like, okay, cool. Like, we don't care about gender anymore. Like, that would be wonderful, right? But we're centuries away from that, if ever, right?
Sure.
And so I think it's really special. I think it's really special to live in a time where so many battles have been fought already, and we're able to have these kinds of conversations.
That's where I see the challenge, though, really, is like I feel like there's been so much acceptance in an awesome way of visibility and like understanding in that sense. But how does that translate to like real life experience? You know, there's like coming out in a major publication, or there's being in a place like this and talking and being given a platform. But then there's going into 7-Eleven
Right.
and like
Yep.
buying a Topo Chico, you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like dealing with any kind of system where someone has a position of power over you. You know, when it comes to like, I made a comment the other day of like, if you let a cisgender person know your dead name, they will fucking lord it over you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And I should have clarified that I specifically meant a cisgender person in a position of power.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And like specifically dealing with anyone in healthcare, anyone in a utilities company, anyone like at a bank, anyone in those sense. I don't know how to bridge that gap. I don't know how to bridge the cultural gap of like,
Right.
and I guess like that's what people talk about with like, oh, it's a culture war, which is like misleading. It's just about human rights and wanting to be treated with a level of fucking dignity and respect that everyone else assumes and takes for granted, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know how to bridge that gap other than to just like keep talking and to keep putting myself out there.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it doesn't even feel like there's necessarily an option to not do that, because then it becomes a point of survival almost, you know? Of like, if I become invisible, then I'm more vulnerable than if I like even have a level of like fame, or you want to fucking call it, you know? Like, I think about like, oh shit, you know, like there is like privilege for sure in having like a social media platform, even in the sense of like, if something really happens to me, I feel like I could like start an Instagram live video and, you know, it'll film the fucking cops beating the shit out of me.
Right.
And like someone will come and help me in some way, you know, like, but that's a terrifying comfort to have,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It is.
And I don't know how to bridge those gaps.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the exact thing that makes me terrified to tour. And you know, it's like, fuck, international too. It's like, there's countries we straight up can't tour. We cannot tour. We cannot go there. It's not safe. And that's I think, again, something that I certainly took for granted for the longest time. You know, it's like, oh, like someday we're gonna go tour this country, and now I'm like, actually, maybe we're not. You know, and it's massively terrifying to start to feel that way about like your home country.
Sure.
To be like, wow, do I just not get to play Tennessee anymore? Is that, we just don't play Nashville, or like, you know, and it's like, it's navigating that, I think, is going to be really difficult. And I don't know what the answer is. You know, I don't necessarily think, I don't subscribe to the idea of like boycotting a state to punish it for its legislative decisions, because I think queer kids in Tennessee are going to need some they're going to need some support, right?
Sure. That was
And-
always my attitude with like North Carolina
Yeah,
when they had the
exactly.
HB bill or whatever it was, you know?
Yep.
And I know many artists like boycotted it then. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, I want to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I remember seeing you, I don't know if it was an interview or if it was just Twitter or whatever, but I think I remember seeing you say that or something to that effect. And I was like, yeah, like it's nice to think about taking a stand, but the only people that you're hurting by doing that, in my opinion, are the people who kind of need you to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're a creator in the queer space.
There's
Right.
also a big difference for the financial impact of someone like, say, Bruce Springsteen boycotting North Carolina.
Sure.
And like
Yes.
our bands where it's like, oh, they're going to miss out on their couple $1,000s
Yeah.
in a beer tap, you know, or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably like, I don't not want to go to places, you know? I don't want anything like that to hold me back. And I'm like thinking about this now in the context of like, damn, like everything I'm thinking about is like pre-quarantine or pre-pandemic. So like I'm trying to flip in real time to like, well, how does that apply even to the future going forward? We're like talking about it as if we can even go out and go on tour right now.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I would
Right.
play
Yeah.
someone's living room this second if I could, you know?
Yeah. Happily. Happily.
Yeah. So what else? What's going on, Reed?
I don't even know. I want shows to come back so fucking bad. I'm ready. Cause clearly I like getting fucking dolled up and like looking ridiculous and I am a Leo rise if you're
Wait, when's your birthday?
I'm a Cancer.
Okay.
I'm June 26th, but I am a Leo rise, which means obviously like everyone look at me. And like it's gonna suck to know that like I don't know when I'm gonna be able to do the like lead singer thing again. That sucks, you know. And obviously, you know, we have the fest booked in October. Please, you know. We have other things that people are talking to us about, but every single thing that I confirm is like, hope that happens. You know, hope it's safe to do that. And you know, I do feel like I don't know if it's wishful thinking, but I do feel like we're reaching a point where it may be realistic to think that those things are going to happen. But what does it look like is the question, right? And it's just so much unknown. It's so much unknown. But I need it. I need it so bad. You know?
I guess in thinking about that, that would be something that I'd be excited for you to experience, and that I thought was really valuable and most surprising. And like going back to talking about like fan reaction and stuff, is that like there's a difference between receiving that support online, you know, and in that way, and having it actually shown to you
Yeah.
in the way of like coming out of a show and like, oh, people are like hanging out just because they want to be like, hey, I support you, you know, like, and that's also like my fear of going back out and touring too, is like, I think, you know, once shows come back will be one thing, but also like the idea of, I don't know if it'll be safe to like go out after a show and talk to people because like that's such close proximity, the hugging, you know, or like taking pictures and stuff like that.
Right.
It's a shame, you know?
Yeah, that's the stuff you don't think about until you think about it, and then you're like, oh, yeah. So even if shows come back, when does that kind of stuff come back? You know?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Are they even doing Pride celebrations this year? I don't think they are.
I think New York. I know that New York City is doing something because I just saw that they banned all cops in
Okay.
uniform, which made me very happy. So I know they're at least doing something, but I don't. Again, it's like I don't know what it looks like. I don't know. I don't know if I'll go to anything. If there's anything in LA, probably not. You know, I would like to experience that, but it's like It's just such a strange time we live in. And I don't know how to navigate it. It's like part of me is like, well, I'm vaccinated, right? So I'm not going to get sick. But then there's also the like, we don't know if that means that I could potentially make somebody else sick. We don't know. I mean, the CDC can say whatever they want to say, right? But like, reality is like, we still don't know. We still don't know. And so like, I don't know. That's a pretty big, it's a pretty big risk to take on somebody else's behalf until we know, and I think that's what it's going to be for me. Until we really have definitive data, on what it means to be vaccinated, I don't know if I'm going to feel comfortable attending anything like that, even outdoor, Maybe I'm too careful or too conservative or whatever, but it just feels like, I know it sucks. Like, I want 500 people in this room right now and a fucking guitar on my shoulder, but,
Well, I guess that like relating that back all to this,
yeah,
like with the idea of moving forward and the idea of like, as a trans person, where usually the narrative and the focus is like completely around the coming out story, like where do you want to go? Where do you want your band to go? Do you want to be a band that is like known as a band with a trans singer or person in it? Or do you want to be known just as a ska band, or like, and then how do you even relate that to the rest of your band and their ambitions for what they're doing,
I mean, I think that I'm in the minority on this, but personally, I like the idea of being a queer forward band. I like that. And maybe it's just because I repressed these feelings for so long, and now I'm 33 and I'm like so excited to express it, But I just like, I look at the people who inspire me, and I'm like, the people who inspire me are mostly pop musicians at this point. But what inspires me about them is how just like flamboyant they are in their existence. They're wearing, my football pads to play the halftime show, right? And it's just like grandiose shit, right? And I look at that and I'm like, I really like grandiose performance. Like that's just a passion of mine that I've never gotten to explore. And I feel like leaning into that and making like queer ska a thing feels like an opportunity, both for me selfishly to get to experience some of that, but also to create a space that can't be taken away, that can't be just turned into, oh, it's just about ska. I don't want that. I want the ska resurgence. I want the headline of the ska resurgence to be ska is back, it's queer, it's POC driven. Like that's what I want, right? I want to look around my ska community. I want to look around and I want to go, we have created something that is equitable for anybody who wants to exist in this community.
That's the trick. Like that's I like that, but that's like the challenge of like creating a space for yourself for your own self-expression to be welcomed and to be allowed, but then also having that space be inclusive to where everyone else feels welcome and allowed to express themselves, which inevitably isn't going to be always in line with your expression or who you are.
Certainly. Certainly.
Punk rock does that sometimes.
Yes.
But maybe other times fails.
Yeah.
But I think that's also I'm thankful for that, even like within punk rock on a touring level of like, that was the original thing with DIY even, or making the jump from being a DIY punk band to playing in clubs, where you're essentially trying to take the DIY punk scene into a club and be like, all right, disregard that this is Larry's Bar and Grill that we're playing in right now.
Right.
Tonight, it's our venue and it's our space and everyone's welcome, And we definitely try to do that with like, anytime we play at a venue, making all the bathrooms gender neutral. And there's a learning curve though, for like venue staff and people you're working with oftentimes that, I don't know,
Yeah.
it can be frustrating, but also it can like make you a more patient person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that helps in the real world.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. It's it takes a lot more patience than I realized. A lot more patience. Which is okay, I can be patient. I'm not good at it, but I can learn.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you felt challenged in that way yet? Like existing just in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, certainly. Luckily I live in Southern California,
Sure.
and like, if you're going to be trans anywhere, like, especially Los Angeles, it's certainly more normalized, you know, certainly more normalized in Los Angeles than it is elsewhere. But even there, I still feel at times, people are, whether it's just somebody staring at you or whatever. But I will say, I have felt very lucky, and I know that this streak will end at some time or another. But I have yet to have like a truly fucked up situation occur around me. I know that's going to happen. I know at some point I'm going to feel unsafe. I know at some point I'm going to feel, judged or, most part so far, it's just like, yeah, people stare at you sometimes. But also, I don't really give a shit. I don't really give a shit about other people, like in the sense of like what they're thinking about me. Like, I am a performer, but it's for me, really. It's I perform because I like to, whether that's on stage or in everyday life. I perform because I want to. I, dress the way that I do because I want to. Do I also like the way what I'm putting out into the world and react to it positively? Does it feel bad when people react to it negatively? Also, yes. But, and I think maybe it's an age thing. Or maybe I've just done a specific type of soul searching that led me to a place in my life where in my core, if somebody doesn't like me, I don't care. I don't care. I transgender woman and I'm fucking badass. And I'm proud of myself. And I don't actually care if any other person outside of this body is proud of that or is excited about it or has thoughts on it. I'm happy to share experiences with people. It makes me feel good when people say nice things. Again, I'm not saying that words don't affect me or people's judgment or existing in the world and feeling challenged doesn't affect me, but I'm just kind of like, all I can do is like literally the next right thing in front of me, which in this situation might be not engaging with this person. It might be leaving. It might be, making a joke out of the situation and making them feel like an idiot. It might be nothing, and I think that's my mentality. It's like, is the world going to be challenging? Yes. Do I think that the best thing that I can do as a trans person is just not give people who want to judge me the time of day or the power? Yeah. Fuck them. Honestly, fuck them. If they have some shit to say, okay, say it. I don't care. It doesn't change any of this. It doesn't change anything.
It's awesome. I love it. I think that's the kind of pride that I'm into.
Yeah. And that's also part of why I'm kind of like, I'm sure I'll go to a Pride someday. I'm sure I will, but I'm also not racing to go because like, I don't experience it in the way that I have seen, in the way that I understand Pride to exist. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's wonderful. I think for some people that's what they need. That's how they express their pride. But for me, it's much more of a personal thing. It's much more rooted in solitude.
Okay. Here we are, coming out of solitude.
Yeah, right.
Back into the real world,
Right.
hopefully soon.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming here and hanging out with me
Yeah.
and talking.
Thank you for having me. It was a true joy. A true pleasure.
All right, I'm ready when you all are. Go blue, all my love for you, my private paradise. Quarantine is very nice. Sunrise over Gibraltar, some fucking rock, some fucking hotel. Bora Bora, Linda Vista. Give me refuge in your shelter. Give me refuge in your shelter. Shot glass and sugar water. I'll be better come tomorrow. Double espresso and a croissant. All day poolside under the palm fronds. Is the air cleaner to breathe? Can you drink the water too? There's always someone dying to leave. Time to get to sunrise over Gibraltar, some fucking rock, some fucking hotel. Bora Bora, Linda Vista. Give me refuge in your shelter. 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 Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Jane Grace, and here we are at the House of Vans. I want to say it's really it's a strange thing where I think for most musicians, having to get used to talking on stage to an audience is something that they learn after the fact and that they get good at after the fact. I know that much is true for me. So now in these plague times, having to get good at talking to no one while recording shows like this is kind of a mind fuck. But I'm happy that you all are watching, and I'm happy that everyone here in the room is with me. The song's called Amsterdam Hotel Room. Doors locked to my Amsterdam hotel room. Housekeeping knows not to bother me. I'll leave my room clean, take my trash to me. Thank you for hospitality. I am a stranger in your city, and I can't decide which song to dance with on my case or two. Dr. Do's up this old shit again. Sure looks handsome, standing there in red. Spend the day with high society. Then crawl back to my room, make sure no one's stolen anything. I want you to come try to find me, so I'm trying to manifest that kind of energy. I want you to come try to find me, hiding out in my Amsterdam hotel room. Hiding out in my Amsterdam hotel room. Run laps in Vonda Park, evading unseen antagonists. Champagne haze and salt jam, soundtrack of the transcendence. The more that I can, the less I have to carry. What feels so good to me, there's always gone in the morning. Curtains drawn, blinds down, covers pulled tight up over my head. I can't see out and nobody can see in, and I don't know where the party is, but I know how it ends. 32 Beaufort Gardens, a great plot in Brompton Cemetery. Pop a top, a desperado, roll another J. Doesn't have to be good to be remembered, tasting that away. I want you to come try to find me, hiding out in my Amsterdam hotel room. Hiding out in my Amsterdam hotel room. Freaking the fuck out of my Amsterdam hotel room. Hiding out of my
a teenage anarchist, looking for revolution. I had the style, I had the ambition, read all the authors, I knew the rough slogans. There was the war, but the class war. I was ready to set the world on fire. I was a teenage anarchist, looking for revolution. Do you remember when you were young and you wanted to set the world on fire? I was a teenage anarchist, but the politics are too convenient. In the gifts of their humanity, all I saw was police ideology, with freedom as a doctrine. Guess I was a new authority. I was a teenage anarchist, but the politics are too convenient. Do you remember to set the world on fire? Do you remember when you were young and you wanted to set the world on fire? When you were young and you wanted to set the world on fire. I was a teenage anarchist, but then the scene got too rigid. It was a mob mentality. They said their rifle sights on me. No visions of autonomy. You want me to surrender my identity. I was a teenage anarchist. The revolution was a lie. Do you remember when you were young and you wanted to set the world on fire? Do you remember when you were young and you wanted to set the world on fire? When you were young and you wanted to set the world on fire. When you were young and you wanted to set the world on fire. I was a teenage anarchist. 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 Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right. Okay. I have a funny story for you all. For everyone watching and for everyone here who works for Vans. That you can feel free to edit out this story if you're like, oh, that's not good for the shoes. But getting the call to record this, I felt like was actually fate in many ways, where I turned 40 on this past November 8th. And on November 7th, I went out to the woods, out like off Cicero or whatever. And I was with a friend of mine who I've known since middle school, and her I think 8 or 9 year old kid. My daughter wasn't with me. We were wearing masks, social distancing, all that, you know. But the kid was like really excited about breaking tree branches and throwing them into the river. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll help you break tree branches and throw them into the river. And so there was a really big one that had a bunch of that in order to get it into the river, we were going to have to break it in half. So I was like, all right, I'll help you do that. And so we got it on top of 2 other down trees, and I was jumping on it to try to get it to break. But I guess it was still a little too green, and I'm fucking getting old as fuck at this point. So I jumped and slipped and broke my fucking foot, and I was wearing a pair of Vans slip-ons at the time. I broke my 5th metatarsal. And so I spent my 40th birthday laying on my couch doing absolutely nothing with a broken foot, and it sucked. So this is karmic retribution for Vans slip-ons. Cool. All right. Thank you. dressed up and nowhere to go. Walking the streets all alone. Another night to wish that you could forget. Making yourself up as you go along. Who's gonna take you home tonight? Who's gonna take you home? Who's gonna take you home tonight? Who's gonna take you home? Does God bless your transsexual heart? True trans soul rebel. Yet to be born, you're already dead. Follow it through to the obvious end. See your veins wide open, you bleed it out. Who's gonna take you home tonight? Who's gonna take you home? Who's gonna take you home tonight? Who's gonna take you home? Does God bless your transsexual heart? To trans soul rebel. Well, you should have been a mother, should have been a wife, should have been gone from here years ago. You should be living a different life. Who's gonna take you home tonight? Who's gonna take you home? Who's gonna take you home tonight? Who's gonna take you home? Who's gonna take you home tonight? Who's gonna take you home? Does God bless your transsexual heart? True trans soul rebel. True trans soul rebel. All right. I really hate these fucking clip-on tuners, but it gives me a little bit more of an accurate read, but it feels so fucking dorky wearing them, you know? I also feel like these are just such a they're just meant for the landfill where people get them and they're never replacing the batteries. They're just throwing them away when they're done with them. Or it means that you have to pay to be in tune, which I really don't like the idea of. There aren't enough tuning forks in the world. I'll assume that joke is really funny and the people at home are laughing. Anybody watch anything good lately? I'm sorry. Sorry, this is being a motherfucker. Okay, this is called The Mountain Song, and I want to send it out to anyone who is staying dry during this pandemic. Waking up to another lonely day. All my bridges burned and my friends are enemies. Feels like there's always gonna be something that I'm missing. What can you do with all this time? Spend the rest of your years getting drunk and getting high. How long can you afford to pay this cost of living? For one more high between me and you, there's not one goddamn thing I wouldn't do with all the busted up teeth and the bad tattoos. Throw me out like trash when it's over. Chew me up and spit me out dry. Chew me up and spit me out dry. It's a cold dark room and an empty bed. You're staring out the window wondering what the fuck happened. Sitting at the table, eat your eggs and drink your coffee in silence. I can only see one way out of this mess. No one's coming with me, sure as fuck ain't coming back. When I said I loved you, I only meant as much as I know how to. For one more high between me and you, there's not one goddamn thing I wouldn't do with all the busted up teeth and the bad tattoos. Throw me out like trash when it's over. Chew me up and spit me out dry. Chew me up and spit me out dry. Coming down the mountain, coming down the mountain, coming down the mountain dry. Coming down the mountain, coming down the mountain, coming down the mountain dry. I'm all fucked up, but I'm alive. Does anyone know what this building used to be? Yes? Cool, just checking. So this was a snow plow and dump truck place? Oh, huh. I'm fascinated with stuff like that. Y'all know the rave in Milwaukee? Oh, yeah. Right. Have you been in? Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm going to play a song called the Swimming Pool Song that was in part inspired by the rave in Milwaukee. But I love the idea of that, where like the rave was built as a Masonic temple, right? You know, and now it's this like crazy multi-leveled rock club, and there's the dressing rooms in the basement by this Olympic-sized swimming pool that's abandoned and emptied out. And surely the people who built this Masonic temple, never in their wildest dreams did they think eventually this will be a rock club, you know? And then time has a way of working out like that. But I think that there's like good lessons in perspective with that, of that things are always in flux and they aren't yet decided. So especially right now during a time of a global pandemic where everything seems like it's totally fucked and the world is ending and, you know, just so much is uncertain. Life has a weird way of working out for the positive, oftentimes. So anyways, this song was inspired in part by the rave in Milwaukee. And it's about feeling emptied out, broken down, burnt out, fucked up, but knowing that you have the capacity to feel whole and good again. capacity remains unchanged. I am a haunted swimming pool. I am emptied out and drained. My capacity remains unchanged. I don't know the source of my faith, but I know I will be born again. Come on in and take a swim. I am a burning church. I am artifice and years collapsing. I may have become all that I'll be. I am a burning church. I am artifice and years collapsing. I may have become all that I'll be. And when my body has been spent, my soul will run me. Graffiti on a wall for all eyes to see. This only feels like the death of everything. 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 Cold weather on the drive here. And the difference from my apartment to the car to bringing it into the venue really fucks with the guitar. I apologize. This is a song about friendship. I feel like a lot of my relationships during this pandemic have been affected in strange ways. Some friendships made stronger, some friendships completely collapsed. And I always think about things in apocalypse terms in those ways, when you look at the people around you or the places around you where you live, as far as like in the event of a zombie apocalypse, who do I want on my team and where would I go and what would I do? And I don't know, I think this global pandemic is as close to a zombie apocalypse as I want to get to, but it's one of those crucible moments. So again, I want to send this song out to friendship. It's called the Friendship Song. We both push until it breaks, and if it's gonna cave, we're gonna give it all of our weight. No, we don't need no defense spoken out on our behalf. If we're reprehensible, then we like it like that. No, I don't have many friends. I only ever seem to fuck over them. You're not like the rest of them. You accept me for who I am, and I don't judge you for it, and that's what friendship is. You and me would make a great team in an apocalypse scenario. Got no one to lead, got no one to lay back and follow. I know you wouldn't hesitate to even on to save a leg. You're a survivor like me, and goddamn it, I like that. No, I don't have to fuck over them. You're not like the rest of them. You accept me for who I am, and I don't judge you for it, and that's what friendship is. You and me can be hard to take. We got alligator mouths and hummingbird wings. See ourselves out, us find a way back in. All alone it's not the same, but together we've got a really good thing. Let's try not to fuck it up. I'll always meet you halfway. No, I don't have many friends. I only ever seem to fuck over them. You're not like the rest of them. forgive me for who I am. And I won't judge you for it, and that's what friendship is. And I won't judge you for it, and that's what friendship is. Song's called Supernatural Possession. One more time. This song is still called Supernatural Possession. Lost track of the time, how long have I been here? Lost track of the time, how many tries have I failed? Broken mug of many mornings. Wipe the grime off your walls, but don't breathe it in. Supernatural possession, you're forever possessing. Supernatural possession, you're forever possessing. I'm having a hard time, having a fun time. I'm having a hard time finding faith in myself when the strange becomes familiar. And there's no going back from where you've been. Supernatural possession, you're forever possessing. Supernatural possession, you're forever possessing. Spectral say the way, all your hopes and dreams. Supernatural possession, supernatural possession, supernatural possession, you're forever possessing. Supernatural possession, supernatural possession, supernatural possession, you're forever possessing. Feels nice to be nervous. Sorry. All right, I want to send this song out to anti-fascists everywhere. From the SR rafters, hang like Cleo with the skull caved in, hang like a cross around my neck. You're gonna hang, you're gonna hang, you're gonna hang like Benito from the SR rafters, hang like Cleo with the skull caved in, hang like a cross around my neck. You're gonna hang, you're gonna hang. What's the best you can hope for? Scraps, subterfuge and detachment, a bullet in the head and a bullet in the chest. from the SR rafters. Hang like clay with the skull caved in. Hang like a cross around my neck. You're gonna hang, you're gonna hang, you're gonna hang like Bonita from the SR rafters. Hang like clay with the skull caved in. Hang like a cross around my neck. You're gonna hang, you're gonna hang. What's the best you can hope for? A blindfold in a ball gag. But I'd ask grotesque beauty. A nail through the beat and a nail through the hands. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 no. You're gonna hang like Bonita from the SR rafters. Hang like Chloe with the skull caved in. Hang like a cross around my neck. You're gonna hang. You're gonna hang. You're gonna hang. You're gonna hang. Oh my God. Fuck. I think this is the first show I've played this year, and I don't know when I'm going to play another show. And that makes me so fucking sad. Fuck a lid. It's a Chicago song. Blood and thunder, south wind coming up western, sunrise on Gold Coast, moon over boundary. South wind coming up western, simple as heaven, your love is all I need. C3060, a stranger with a face that reminds me of who I used to be and what I used to need. Maybe I still want it, maybe that's still me. Blood and thunder, south wind coming up western, sunrise on Gold Coast, moon over boundary. Blood and thunder, south wind coming up western, simple as heaven, your love is all I need. I'd rather have a great wide open up in front of me than a big nothing fill my heart with its need. When you give it and quit, there's a power to be found in it. Blood and thunder, south wind coming up western, simple as heaven, your love is all I need. It's as simple as heaven, your love is all I need. Song's called The Hanging Tree. Baby's born into apocalypse, ain't got no vision, got no taste for death. You can't trust a man with hair like that. Too much deception, no subconscious. Got no pity, got no purpose, ain't got no future, what's the point in it? God is good and God is great, now get the fuck out of the USA. Christ like the American way. A burning crucifix and a hanging tree. A burning crucifix and a hanging tree. Learn to beg harder. You pray for walls, pray for slaughter. We don't wanna die quietly. We wanna fuck shit up and cause a scene. Tweeting from a golden, that's your power. God is good and God is great. Now get the fuck out of the USA. Christ like the American way. A burning crucifix and a hanging tree. Automatic weapons and white supremacy. Protected privilege without apology. Liberty and justice for the wealthy. Get the fuck out of the USA. Christ like the and a hanging tree. A burning crucifix and a hanging tree. Hanging tree. Shit. I heard this song for a friend of mine I hadn't seen in a long time. We used to live in the same city. I got back in touch with him a couple years ago, and this was pre-pandemic. Live. Shit, sorry. The hopelessness keep rising up till the pain is gone. Don't make any promises. Old friend, I'm losing my mind. Watching the days burn into years. Watching the years burn dry. Please stay alive. Please stay. Inside a shell, I'm feeling just as hollowed out. I don't belong anywhere I go, always the outsider. Old friend, I'm losing my mind. Watching the days burn into years, watching the years burn dry. Please stay alive. Please stay alive. Please stay alive. Please survive. Please survive. So I wanted to play play a song that I never really do acoustic for two reasons. One, to do something special for this taping, and then two, because of how the song came about. I don't know if you all know who Syl Sylvain was. Syl played guitar in the New York Dolls, and he passed away recently. And back in 2004 or 2005, I got asked to work with the New York Dolls and to write for the record that they were doing at the time. And I went out and had this super awkward lunch with David Johansen, and somehow convinced him that it was a good idea. And he's like, yeah, sure, come by the studio, hang out. And so I went into the studio, and I immediately felt awkward when I was there. I was so out of place. I was super young. I had no business being in the studio with the New York Dolls. But Syl in particular was really nice to me, and took me aside and was just telling me old stories of what it was like to be in a band with Johnny Thunders, and how they'd be playing shows, and if Johnny Thunders' amp cut out, he'd just walk over and unplug Syl's guitar and plug it into his guitar, and that was the way it was. But so this song is a song that I wrote for the New York Dolls, but then after I wrote it, I was like, nah, I want to keep it for myself. And I kind of regret that I did, but such is life. But anyways, I wanted to play it in honor of Syl Sylvain. So the song's called Americans Abroad. Golden arches rise above the necks of a pass. These horizons are endless. We're Americans abroad. We're Americans abroad. Profit-driven expansion in foreign markets. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. This is the best summer that I've ever had. European vacation, me and my best friends. We're Americans abroad. We're Americans abroad. Whatever there is to be said, said in English. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. Here we are, rock band, looking for new audiences. Wherever we go, Coca-Cola's already been. We're Americans abroad. We're Americans abroad. And I just can't help but think there's comparison. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. While I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. Not so sure. I'm not so sure. This is a traveling song. I miss traveling very much. Wish I was going someplace tropical. Wish I was going to Portugal. I wanna walk the streets of Oporto. I wanna be someone that I don't know. Floating blind in a highway bed. Sleep speeding towards oblivion. Lay me down in a sea of dreams. Take me away from where I've been. Obelisk overlooking thee. Dirty river smells chemical sweet. Sun shines down on Glasgow greens. I feel the future coming fast towards me. Northern soul on a midnight boat. Play the slots, hope to win your ones. I'm thinking about jumping overboard. I take you with me everywhere I go, crossing days off a calendar map. How long you been gone? How long you got left? Only a fool would live the life like that. Only a fool would live the life like that. Crossing days off a calendar map. How long you been gone? How long you got left? Only a fool would live the life like that. Only a fool would live the life like that. Waste your days counting what you got left, what you should have had, and what you'll never get back. Waste your days counting what you got left, what you should have had, and what you'll never get back. Only a fool would live the life like that. I wrote this song in 2017 and had no idea that it would be oddly more relevant here in 2021 than it was then. It's called Apocalypse Now and Later. You make me walk away from the hate I carry. Same page, same ways, so effortlessly. I'll put faith in you if you put faith in me. If we wanted, it could be that easy. On top of the world, at the end of the world with you. Don't ever hold back what you're saying to me. Don't ever restrain, just be. I never half measure anything. If it's what they tell you, that's where I wanna be. On top of the world, at the end of the world with you. On top of the world, at the end of the world with you. There's nothing that can hold me back. Don't have happy ever after, just have here right now. On the sowing of our souls, watch the world burning by. The bliss of your kiss and the apocalypse. On top of the world, at the end of the world with you. On top of the world, at the end of the world with you. On top of the world, at the end of the world. On top of the world, at the end of the world. On top of the world, at the end of the world with you. So I've been playing this song since I was 18 years old. I wrote it when I was 18, and I'm not sure when my next show will be. So the idea of going a year without playing this song kind of fucks with my head. So I want to make sure to play it today, just because got to get it out of the way. Yeah. Evelyn sits by the elevator doors. she kept on her nightstand, and a card locked her red hair. Kept secrets of pride locked so tight in her heart. Hid a part of her, thought the rest was gone. She said, if I would have known just how things would have ended up, I just would have let myself die. And just like James, I've been drinking Irish tonight, with the memory of this last one week. Be gone forever, Evelyn. I'm not coming home tonight. We're never together, I'm never back again. I swear to God that I'll love you forever, Evelyn. I'm not coming home tonight. We're all presidents. Fuck. I fucking totally lost my pitch. There it is. Let's try that again. We're all presidents, we're all congressmen, we're all cops in waiting. We are the workers of the world. There is the elite and the dispossessed, and it's only about survival. Who has skill to play the game for all it's worth? The rich and obscure kind of affection. Let's try and keep as much emotion out of this as possible. Let's try not to remember any names. Do it for country, for people, more vision. United will make them remember our history. Oh, how we like to be told. How we like to be told. We rock because us against them, we find our own reasons to sing. And it's so much less confusing when lines are drawn like that. When people are either consumers or revolutionaries, enemies or friends, hanging on to the fringes of the cogs in the system. It's just about knowing where everyone stands. All of a sudden, people start talking about guns, talking like they're going to war. 'Cause they found something to die for. Start taking back what they stole. Shove it's every other option. Does it make a difference how we get in? Or do you really fucking get it? Even just a little bit at all? No, 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 no. I'm just going to assume that everyone at home was clapping along. And I do want people to know that when I'm all by myself and I practice that song, I still do the hand claps. All right, I got like 2 more songs. I feel like I can't tell if I've been up here for 5 minutes or 3 hours. So, okay, cool. Thank you all again for having me. I appreciate it. It's really nice to be out and around people, even if briefly. I don't ever wanna talk that way again. I don't wanna know people like that anymore. As if there was an obligation, as if I owed you something. Black me out. I wanna piss on the walls of your house. I wanna chop those brass rings off your fat fucking fingers. Thank you all so much. That was super fun.